The Subaru Crosstrek is a lifted all-wheel drive hatchback with a lot going for it despite being among the older offerings in the class. So today I'm going to explain my stance on the Crosstrek through giving you the highs, the lows, and exactly what's new for 2023. If you'd like a full review, I've already made one on the 2021 Crosstrek, and I'll link that below. We should be approaching a complete redesign here in the next year or two. So for 2023, Subaru didn't do a whole lot. They just added the availability of a special edition package for the premium trim. That's going to come with an exclusive desert khaki color, the sport wheels, a red and black treatment done to the interior, and the 8-inch touchscreen from the limited trim. And for just $600 more, it seems like kind of a steal. Before I get into the meat of this video, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. While these aren't in any particular order, one of the biggest draws to the Crosstrek for me is its simplicity. Whether we look at it mechanically, you only have naturally aspirated engines available. You can access most points of the engine pretty easily, hold for the spark plugs. And the straightforward nature continues on the inside. You have physical controls for just about everything, which we're starting to see go away in the Subaru lineup. While the infotainment system is not too snappy and could use a better resolution, it's still fairly easy to use, as is pretty much everything with the Crosstrek. There are also competitors like the Mazda CX-30 and Honda HR-V that take this similar analog approach, but do it in a more premium manner, except I think this still has a kind of an old school charm to it. Maybe it's because of the lower windows, it has pretty good visibility, it just feels very easygoing. And also the materials used, how everything fits together, gives an impression of durability. And overall, this does have a rugged personality for its class, and that's the next pro I want to talk about with the Crosstrek. It's go-anywhere attitude paired with full-time all-wheel drive. While I wouldn't advise putting yourself into any sort of predicament with a subcompact crossover, the Crosstrek should handle it better than most with 8.7 inches of ground clearance and an all-wheel drive system that can actually divert more than 50% of the torque to the rear wheels, and it has an off-road mode that's actually somewhat capable at sending power side to side through its X-Mode system, and it's the only car in the class to use a longitudinally mounted engine, and it was strategically designed to have equal length drive shafts to help better with torque steer and balance. And you really do feel that on the road, and that's the next reason for the Subaru Crosstrek. Really a big proponent to it is the handling. It's a very confident vehicle for this kind of footprint. And there are various reasons for this. The low center of gravity from the boxer engine along with the rigid platform allow it to keep body roll in check without necessitating a firm ride. The fully independent suspension also helps this to remain composed under cornering on all sorts of roads. And since the all-wheel drive is full-time, you can mash the throttle at any point in any sort of weather without the remote fear of ending up in a local ditch. And the steering too, while numb, has got a quick ratio, so it feels like it can change direction kind of rapidly. Normally it's not really all that fun to drive, but if you can find one with the 6-speed manual transmission, which I was debating making that its own sole reason to buy this thing, because it's one of the only SUVs in the US to offer all-wheel drive with a manual transmission. And that transmission does make it actually a kind of fun vehicle to drive around town or back roads. The only problem is that that's only paired to the 2-liter engine. The 2.5 liter adds 30 horsepower over the 2-liter engine, the latter of which comes with the base and premium, while you get the extra displacement with the sport and limited. And if you live towards the east or west coast of the United States, you can get an efficient plug-in hybrid that has just 17 miles of EV-only range and less power than either of the non-hybrids. The next reason that I would pick a Crosstrek over another vehicle in the class is because of the comfort. Again, it isn't sprung stiff, yet feels under control through streets that scare children. It's the most forgiving in the class, although I have yet to whip a Hyundai Kona or Kia Seltos. And it makes it one of the best vehicles to own, especially in like the Rust Belt and places that get a ton of snow, because often the roads are also terrible. So not only do you have a great all-wheel drive system, you have something that can really take a beating. And the seats are also soft, but I do want to note, you can't get lumbar adjustment on these things. And this isn't alone in the segment for not offering that, but it really seems like the only thing holding this back from being a really comfortable highway cruiser. Because it also cruises at relatively low RPMs, and road noise is also kept under control. My last reason to pick up the Crosstrek is a little bit more controversial because that's running costs when we consider reliability, but also gas mileage and resale. So this thing is rated at 29 miles to the gallon combined by the EPA. My parents actually have a Crosstrek and it easily beats that rating. Plus you have resale that even before the pandemic was stellar. It honestly made for a moral dilemma when I used to sell new Subarus and we'd have a used one come in, because they were basically the same price before prices got absurd. And this generation of the Crosstrek, released for the 2018 model year, has been pretty reliable for the most part. In the past, yes, Subarus have suffered from head gasket issues, but that was alleviated through the use of a semi-closed deck and a difference in gasket material. Still, from all the research that I've done, the design itself is just going to be more susceptible to that kind of failure, but that's usually something you'd expect at a really high mileage. If you look at customer reported failures, most of those dropped off steeply around 2009, 2010. I sound like a broken record now, but oil consumption was derived from the oil ring failure there on the piston rings, and that should also be alleviated. We'll find out if that was permanently fixed here in a few years. When this gen debuted, there were many complaints with buggy software, and some people reported engine stalling problems and jerkiness too. Some other miscellaneous issues like easily cracked windshields and dying batteries were reported as well, just in far fewer numbers than the Outback. Satisfaction rates seem high based on cars.com reviews, even for the first model year, so it seems that most have had a trouble-free experience. When it comes to complaints with the Crosstrek, a few things stand out in my head. One, I wish that the 2.5 liter engine was standard and not something that just came with the Sport and Limited trim. Mainly because it gets about the same gas mileage, but offers a substantial boost of power that makes the Crosstrek a lot more relaxed driving. I think for a lot of people buying a car in this segment though, the 2 liter is fine, that's what's in this car. It just struggles a bit when you're loaded up or at a higher elevation. My next knock is CVT refinement. While this transmission and most other CVTs offer a smooth response at higher speeds, at low speeds, this one tends to lurch and exaggerate its power under light throttle. The CVT in the new Honda HR-V and the CVT with the physical first gear in the Corolla Cross feel more linear down low. Want to avoid the auto? My next complaint is how difficult it is to find a manual Crosstrek in the States. The Subi also tends to feel cheap compared to many others in the class, but I can accept this because it feels expensive on bad roads. And my other complaints I've already briefly mentioned, like the lack of lumbar adjustment, the infotainment system just kind of fallen behind from the rest of the class. And if I'm really going to nitpick for the length of this thing, I wish the cargo area was a little bit more spacious. However, passenger space is still quite good. I'm 6'3" and I can fit behind myself in the back seat without any problems. Overall, the Crosstrek is a very agreeable, substantial feeling subcompact SUV. There's more premium options in the class, there's more fun options in the class, but I think the Crosstrek stands out for its confidence both on-road and off-road, and the personality that Subi's given the thing. Overall, despite it being due for a redesign, I think it's still more than competitive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like to help me with my battle against the YouTube algorithm. If you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell. I'll catch you in the next one. And thank you to my very loyal patrons.